Hey, everybody, and welcome to our ongoing series of port executive interviews. My name is Captain Jeff Monroe. I am the Director of Education Programs for the International Association of Maritime and Port Executives. And we have been doing this series of programs throughout the last couple of months to get an opportunity to talk to some senior port executives and some senior executives who are in the industry, have been affiliated with the industry, to provide some guidance, more or less, to the next generation of folks coming up. But that being said, I'm very pleased to have an old friend who took our program in Savannah and in New York, and when she was the director of the Fernandina Port in Florida, and she has really come a great distance. So now she's the government affairs advisor for Adams Reese, which is a major law firm. And we would like to welcome to our program Laura DiBella. Laura, so nice to see you.
So wonderful to see you, Captain Monroe. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, always a pleasure. Tell us a little bit about your career path and some of the stuff that you've done in the past.
Sure. Well, I started off in commercial real estate. That is my background. That is my foundation, if you will. So from commercial real estate, I was recruited to economic development. I was recruited to be the executive director for Nassau County Economic Development Board. That is the northeasternmost county in Florida, home to the Port of Fernandina. I was economic development director there for 5 years. 2.5 years into the 5 years, I was basically voluntold to be port director. The port was going through a major transition and needed some help. And I was approached by the Florida Department of Transportation, the Florida Ports Council, a few of the harbor pilots, and they said, "Would you mind attending the port?" Attending these meetings on behalf of the port. And I was like, sure, anything. I want to make sure that this port is it stands up and, and has a successful transition and, continues to operate. It was very important to the economy. That's all I knew about seaports. So obviously I dove right in and became a student of yours and learned, the principles and foundations of port leadership. And then it was supposed to be a temporary assignment at the port. It turned into a 2.5-year gig, which ultimately led to the Florida Harbor Pilots Association reaching out to me in November of 2019. They hired me as their first executive director to, pretty much pound the pavement on their behalf, in Tallahassee, in our state capital. Was a position that never existed before. So I kind of blazed my own trail, and it happened to come 3 months before the magnificent shutdown that completely upended the shipping world, along with the cruise industry significantly, in the state of Florida. So I was with them for those nearly three very tumultuous years, but years that I will forever embrace, because they were such an amazing learning opportunity and really cemented my appreciation as far as the importance of maritime and what it means for our economy and our world. So
you really, as the first executive director, you really kind of got the whole place organized, got all the pilots, working together, and more or less, of course, they all looked after their own ports. But the bottom line is, I think most people came to appreciate more what the pilots did, particularly in Miami and Lauderdale and Jacksonville and places. And of course, I had several meetings with the pilots where the folks all, knew you and were very complimentary about the work that you had done, and helping not only the pilots get the word out about the importance of their jobs in the ports, but also, linking the connection of the ports together. I know there were a bunch of challenges. You had the challenges down in Key West, for example, where they sat there and they said, gee, we don't want any cruise ships anymore, which is the same issue they're facing up in Bar Harbor right now. But you managed to work your way through all of that. And then, somebody noticed you up in Tallahassee.
Yeah. So in July of 2022, I was appointed Deputy Secretary of Commerce for the state of Florida, position that I held for 6 months until I was actually, well, I started the job without a boss. So I essentially was acting secretary as of day one. And then 6 months later, I like to say, I was made an honest woman. I was appointed Secretary of Commerce, which I held that position until not too long ago. So I left the state, and for different iterations of leadership as far as economic development is concerned within the state of Florida, and now I've joined Adams Reese as a government affairs consultant. So a lot of people ask me, they're like, "What's the difference between your job now and what you did before?" And I was like, "Really, not a whole lot." I was like, "Just now, I represent the other side. I'm still liaising between government and industry. It doesn't matter what industry it is." And I have over 300 attorneys that are in the form of experts that I can lean upon now. So I call it full service economic development in all shapes and forms. Adams Reese has a huge maritime division to it, to their fleet, and that really drew me to them. I appreciate those that appreciate the industry, so they won my vote.
You've had a number of successes, particularly in economic development, as well as in Fernandina when you were over there. I mean, they were for a while the exclusive providers of cargo into Bermuda and stuff with the service that was coming out of there. But you also had a number of successes. How do you actually plan economic development? Because as you know, a lot of our ports are always looking at business development, and it really, economic development, business development go hand in hand. But how is it that you would approach the planning of, finding out the information you need and then being able to put the partnerships together? Because you cut a lot of ribbons while you were there.
Yeah, it's there's no magic formula as to how to make it work, make everything work. But I can only say, it is the continuous question of asking why not. Like in a world of no's, which is what economic development and name somebody, you will run into name an industry, I should say. You will run into the word no, we can't do that, it's never been done before, all of these things constantly. An economic developer or port director, whomever it is, needs to continually push the envelope and say, why not? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we pursuing certain things, certain industries? Why are we not capable of doing such things? The mantra, it's always been done this way, we don't know any better, is just, it does not qualify. And you will not be successful if you are not continually trying to expand your horizons, and also understanding the reasons why. Now on the flip side, you need to understand what you're good at, and so you can't be all things to all people. You need to know where you should really focus your energies, because resources are what they are, and and talking about resources, I had like near next to nothing when I was with Nassau County, in addition to being with the port. So you have to leverage every single free opportunity you have to really network with people, and really make that, cast a really wide net, so that everybody, your name comes to mind when a port project comes up, or when any sort of opportunity comes up, as far as being someone that has knowledge of the subject. What do I mean by that? I mean, I am huge in social media, huge on LinkedIn in particular, not necessarily Facebook or any of the other ones, but LinkedIn is such a powerful free tool that allows you to get your message across when done correctly, and then also be the recipient of potential business coming in. So I've been able to leverage that for years and years, and it is I've had demonstrable success with that specific tool in mind. But going back to the networking, I would attend as much as I could, as far as conferences are concerned. I would give myself every opportunity to really understand the network, because the network is so small in the end. The world is big, but the maritime community in particular is very small. So getting to know as many people as possible that could possibly refer, be a mentor in some way, just be integrated within the community, making sure that they know you and you know them, and taking those relationships through every every subsequent career path. And I'm grateful for all of that. So really not staying in your silo. I think that's the problem with maritime. Everybody stays in their little box, their lane, like we're in the maritime lane. We don't deal with anything on the transportation side, on the roads or bridges, or anything like that. We should be talking to all parties, economic developers too. So I'm surprised at how many economic developers I was that did not have any relationships with their seaports. None. Like, seaports, maybe a little bit of their airports, but even if they didn't have one in their own backyard, I was like, you should absolutely know all of your seaports, and who's the leadership there, what they can provide. I mean, that's, maritime is the foundation of economic development. Without seaports, economic development wouldn't exist. And I say that all the time. So it's still, the principle still resides today.
Well, I always have this interesting question of people say, is it better to take someone who knows about how to deal with government and make them a port director, or take someone who's a port director and try to teach them about how to deal with folks in government? What are some of the big challenges that you have faced with I mean, you've dealt with some of the highest echelons, certainly with the governor's office in your state and, the major agencies and stuff like that. What's really the key to success, do you think, in getting the message across to those government officials who are dealing with a ton of things?
It really is, I don't want to use the term dumbing it down, but it really is simplifying the message. Like, don't assume that those that you are speaking to understand your business. You need to make it abundantly clear and make it, very, very succinct, and connect the dots for everyone that you talk to, because you're constantly, speaking from my experience, when you're at state government, you're at the highest levels, you're just getting hit by, constantly with constant information. Like there's a reason why they're briefing sheets, is because that's all you can really consume, in a matter of, in terms of making decisions. And if the information is incomplete, incomprehensible, it's not, something that's easily digestible, and you can see a pathway to success, it gets put on a file and may or may not ever be revisited. So there is a clear and concise way that you need to communicate to leadership on all levels, but it really involves, drawing a very clear distinction between the problem and the solution. Don't leave it up to them to make that solution. Of course, they may come up with those ideas, but for the very creative minds that are in government, can certainly help put something together, in terms of, leveraging tools that will be helpful. But you need to be the one to really paint the picture and put it all together and kind of hand it to them and say, here's the problem, here's the solution, this is how it needs to be done. So you're the expert. That's the thing. You're the expert. They're not.
I often hear from people in the port industry that say that, ports are undervalued by DOTs, and they're undervalued by government officials and stuff. Do you think that spending more time trying to keep them educated is an effective tool of doing it? Because there's so many things that you're competing with, in regards to getting information to people. Everybody's knocking on their door and everything. But do you think the states actually undervalue their seaports?
I hate to use the word undervalue, but I just think it's misunderstood. They're very underappreciated in the sense of every single aspect that they interface within the economy. So it's these past couple of years have as unfortunate as they've been, as far as the supply chain crisis is concerned, they've been a wonderful testament to the role of seaports and and maritime industry altogether. So I think we're in a better place than we've ever have been, from an industry perspective. But I think the level of education definitely needs to be enhanced, and again, enhanced in a way to connect the dots. It's one thing to say, okay, maritime, we bring this and this and this, but you need to say, oh, we bring in this and this is why, because this is what it does for you, So I have I have something that I commonly say to to a lot of students, and to anybody, any businesses that I speak to, and it lends to manufacturing. I always call manufacturing the mothership, and I would go ahead and put maritime in the same category. In the end, everybody's working towards a manufacturer and potentially a maritime use, because 90 some odd percent, of all goods are coming in through ships. So you need to understand that, you industry X, no matter what industry that is, there's a tie, there's a connection from you to a maritime purpose. So that distinction needs to continually be drawn. Don't expect anybody to make those connections on their own. They may understand that, subconsciously they get it, but it needs to be continually reiterated again and again and again, and therefore enforced.
And not only with our elected official, but with our appointed officials. I mean, in many cases, the power within state agencies lies with the bureaucrats, more so with the elected officials. I had one commissioner told me, he says, as commissioner, all I do is ride the top of the wave. The bureaucracy moves it forward in the right direction. Laura, what would you say is the difference between, having dealt with as much international business as you have, the difference between dealing with the culture here in the United States versus dealing with the culture overseas? Do you find that in most cases they're much more interested in trying to do business with us here in the States?
Oh yeah, most definitely, most definitely. The doing business with any state in the United States altogether is paramount to everyone that I had met. Abroad, we're such an important trading partner to them, just like they would be such an important trading partner to us. I think one area where education may be needed on our side is just the way the business relationships are formed. So it's a bit more of a getting to know you phase. It's definitely a relationship building. It's not like, okay, let's get down to business. Nice to meet you. It's definitely a bit more longer of a sales cycle, depending on what culture, you may be dealing with. I'm talking about like the Far East cultures in particular. But yeah, the United States has, is a very critical partner to everyone that I've met, and they only want to work further with them, as far as developing technologies, a lot of bridge type of relationships. We signed many MOUs, and they need our support as much as we need theirs.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, being that you're part of the next generation of executives, there's a lot of young people, particularly I've noticed that there's a lot of young people who are taking our courses now, who are in their 20s and their 30s, and who are in essence, aspiring to someday be senior executives in the industry. And it's always kind of interesting because they come into the business and then, they learn about what they're supposed to be doing, but I always try to encourage people to have a much more broader perspective, right? As I say to a lot of these, I say, some of you sitting in this class, right, are going to be senior managers someday. People like the Beth Rooneys of the world, and the Brandy Christians of the world, and the Griff Lynches of the world, who have aspired and now are senior executives in these different ports and stuff like that. What advice do you think would be helpful to young people who are just coming into the industry, and where they should set their aspirations, and how do they get to fulfill those aspirations?
Probably the best advice I can give is just keep your mind open, and don't pigeonhole yourself to or relegate yourself to one particular position. Like you don't know, not all trains take you where you need to go. I love that little saying, because it's true. Like you will be identified, your skill sets will be identified by certain individuals that may put you into a position you never thought that you would be, at all qualified for. Prime example right here, port director number 1, harbor pilots executive director number 2. So there's something, right place at right time always applies. to anyone and everyone. So sharpen your skill sets, try out different jobs. Some will be good for you, some will not be, but get your foot in the door and I don't want to say take your pride off the table, but yeah, maybe take your pride off the table. You know, it's more important for you to get into the industry and grow than it is from just from landing, you know, the position of you know, the dream position, and that may ultimately not be for you. So really, you know, get to know all the facets of the industry and then pick a path, or it may be picked for you.
I used to tell people who used to come to work for me, both at Massport and certainly up in Portland, I say, you know, first thing I want you to do is dust off your resume and update it. I says, because we're going to be so far out on the limb, you know, that sooner or later it might get cut off, you know, and you should be prepared when the fall comes. And I think in the long run, you're absolutely on target. You know, you have to think in many cases outside of the box. And that has been a consistent theme with the other folks that we have interviewed in this program, is that really, you know, to not pigeonhole yourself into some aspect and think that this is all I can do. You really have to think much broader perspective wise. And you have to think in the aspect that, you know, there are possibilities out there. Let's see how we can figure out how to do it. I love what you said about, you know, no is a common answer in the industry. Oh, we tried that once, so that'll never work, you know. And I think in the aspect of what I've seen that you've accomplished, certainly down there, you have done a great deal of good, and that has taken you to a lot of places, because a lot of people don't really understand the amount of people who depend on the business that we are in. You know, the employment that's out there, the jobs that are available, both direct and indirect. And I think you saw that very much in the economic development. How many people are working now, you know, because of the deals that we're able to get put together.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, it's good from that perspective. And you're a marathon runner as well, which I always get a big kick out.
Past tense. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't know.
It's still there. I don't know if
I
it's
still see
there.
on social media, you know, in the latest things that you've, all the medals that you hang off I think that's pretty impressive. So
Yeah.
that's good. But I think that's something that, you know, to run a marathon, not that I know anything about that, obviously, right? But takes a great deal of determination, you know, and focusing on the goal,
Yeah.
right? Which is get across the finish line. And I think that certainly has been something that's really been remarkable, and successful people is that they find the goal, right, and then they focus on the goal and they stay focused on the goal, and keep moving along. And I think you probably apply some of those virtues to the business development work that you do.
Yeah, most definitely. Not every day is going to be a good day. Not every mile is going to be a great one, but it's all about, you know, if you veer off track, if things, you know, things go a little sideways, you know, in the end, you just continue to, it's one step at a time. You keep going towards, you know, the bigger, better goal, bigger, larger goal, you know, which is finishing. So it's it's never going to be easy, but it's all about staying in the game, because you're going to get knocked around a lot. I mean, but that's the world. So, you know, pick an industry, everybody's going to have it, but I'd rather have fun in what I'm doing. And
Well, that's good. And Adams Reese does a lot of work with ports on the Gulf Coast and in Florida and stuff like that. And their fundamental business is government relations, along with many other things.
yes, all name a sector, every industry sector we're very dominant in. So very heavy, as I mentioned, in the maritime space. Like, we actually represent all of the shipbuilders in the United States. So the Shipbuilders Association. So that's a major part. We have an aviation aerospace division, you know, AI division, you know, construction, you know, all of it. You know, just there's you need some expertise, you know, we got it. So environmental, just all of it. Carbon capture, I learned about that today. We have a huge carbon capture department. So, you know, just all these emerging industries and legacy industries are all represented so heavily by the firm.
Yeah, I think it's a whole new world. And of course, you know, everybody's going to be scratching their heads about what happens in November and what the future is going to look like, you know, but it seems that those relationships. And as you know, in our industry, it's about relationships,
Yep.
and this is how you are successful, by working with people and getting to know them, getting them to trust you as well. So, well,
Mhm.
it certainly has been an interesting chase for you, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. I think certainly very, very insightful, and I think very consistent with some of the other conversations we've had with other port executives and other senior executives in other industries, who basically say the same thing. Don't put yourself in a pigeonhole, focus on the goal, things like that. And, success and reputation are critical factors. And certainly I think this is a new opportunity for you, but I think you'll do well in it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity as always, Jeff. I'm your biggest fan. So, I owe a lot to you. So anytime you need anything, you can always call on me. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Laura, and appreciate your time today. And have a wonderful week, and good luck and all successes.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.